Welcome to Sleepy Travel Stories. Tonight, let me take you on a journey to a faraway place. Close your eyes, relax, and let the world drift away. The day has been long, and the weight of it still clings to your shoulders as you make your way down the weathered wooden steps toward the water's edge. But here, in this quiet corner of a small Thai fishing village, time seems to move differently. The sun hangs low in the western sky, painting everything in shades of amber and rose. And there's something about the gentle lapping of water against the dock that begins to ease the tension from your body almost immediately. Your bare feet touch the sun-warmed planks of the pier, and you can feel the slight give of the wood beneath you, worn smooth by countless fishermen who have walked this same path for generations. The boards creak softly with each step, a familiar sound that mingles with the distant murmur of voices from the village behind you and the rhythmic whisper of small waves against the hulls of boats. Captain Somchai is waiting for you at the end of the dock, his weathered hands coiling a length of rope with practiced ease. His smile is warm and genuine as he looks up from his work, the kind of expression that immediately puts you at ease. He gestures toward his long-tail boat with obvious pride, and you can see why. The vessel stretches about 20 feet in length, its narrow hull painted in faded blues and greens that seem to capture and hold the evening light. The boat rocks gently in its berth, responding to the subtle movement of the water with an easy, hypnotic rhythm. Its most distinctive feature, the long propeller shaft that gives these boats their name, extends far behind the stern, the engine mounted at the back, looking almost comically oversized for such a slender craft. But there's elegance in this design, a perfect adaptation to the shallow waters and narrow channels of Thailand's coastal regions. You step closer to the edge of the dock, and Somchai extends a steady hand to help you aboard. The transition from the solid pier to the gently moving deck requires a moment of adjustment, and you feel your body automatically finding its balance as the boat responds to your weight. The sensation is surprisingly pleasant, like being gently rocked by invisible hands. The deck beneath your feet is made of weathered teak, polished smooth by salt water and use. There are small puddles here and there from the day's work, and the wood is still damp in places, cool against your skin. Toward the bow, you can see neat coils of fishing line, a collection of well-maintained nets, and several wooden boxes that presumably hold tackle and bait. Everything has its place, arranged with the careful efficiency of someone who knows his craft intimately. Somchai moves about the boat with easy familiarity, checking various items and making small adjustments. He points to a low wooden seat near the middle of the boat, cushioned with faded canvas that has been sun-bleached to a soft grey blue. You settle onto it gratefully and immediately notice how the position gives you a perfect view in all directions, while keeping you close to the boat's center of gravity. The village behind you is beginning to come alive with the soft glow of early evening. Lanterns flicker on in windows, casting warm yellow rectangles of light that reflect in the water. You can smell the enticing aroma of cooking food drifting on the breeze. Perhaps pad thai being prepared in someone's kitchen, or the rich scent of coconut curry simmering over a low flame. These familiar smells mix with the cleaner scent of salt water and the faint sweetness of tropical flowers blooming somewhere nearby. As Somchai prepares the boat for departure, you have a chance to really look around and take in your surroundings. The harbour is dotted with dozens of similar longtail boats, each painted in its own unique combination of colours. Some are bright and bold, vivid reds and yellows that seem to glow in the sunset light. Others are more subdued, painted in earth tones that blend harmoniously with the natural colours of the water and sky. The water itself is remarkably clear, and you can see several feet down into its depths. Small fish dart back and forth beneath the surface, their silver scales catching and reflecting the light like tiny mirrors. Occasionally, one will break the surface to grab an insect, creating expanding rings that spread outward until they gently bump against the hull of the boat. Your captain moves to the stern and begins the ritual of starting the engine. The long propeller shaft requires a specific technique, and you watch with interest as he adjusts various controls and checks the fuel line. When he finally pulls the starting cord, the engine comes to life with a low, throaty rumble that reverberates through the boat's hull and into your bones. It's not an unpleasant sensation, more like a gentle purring that seems to resonate with some deep, relaxed part of yourself. But he doesn't immediately put the boat into gear. Instead, he lets the engine warm up while he makes a few final preparations. He checks the position of the fishing gear, ensures that a large cooler is securely fastened near the bow, and retrieves a thermos from a small storage compartment. The thermos, you notice, has steam rising from its spout, perhaps tea or coffee, something warm to ward off the chill that will come with full darkness. The sun continues its descent toward the horizon, and the quality of light begins to change noticeably. What was bright and golden just minutes ago is now deeper, richer, taking on shades of orange and red that seem to set the entire world on fire. The water reflects this transformation, its surface becoming a shifting canvas of color that moves and changes with every small wave. Other boats in the harbor are beginning their own evening departures. You watch as a family aboard a nearby vessel waves goodbye to friends on the dock, their voices carrying clearly across the water in the still evening air. An older fisherman on another boat calls out a friendly greeting to Somchai, who responds with equal warmth. There's a sense of community here, of people who share a common understanding of the rhythms of water and weather and the patient art of fishing. The breeze has picked up slightly with the cooling air, and it carries with it new scents and sounds from the surrounding landscape. You can smell the rich, loamy scent of mangrove swamps somewhere nearby, mixed with the clean salt tang of open water. The sound of water lapping against the dock has changed too, becoming more musical somehow, as if the approaching night is tuning the world to a different key. Somchai returns to the wheel, a simple but effective steering mechanism connected to the long rudder by a system of cables. He looks back at you with a questioning expression, and you nod to indicate that you're ready. With practiced ease, he engages the propeller and begins to guide the boat away from its berth. The sensation of movement is incredibly smooth. Unlike larger boats that might lurch or struggle against the water, This long-tail boat seems to slice through the surface with minimal disturbance. The wake that spreads behind you is clean and narrow, and the engine's steady rhythm creates a kind of mechanical lullaby that blends perfectly with the other sounds of evening. As you move away from the dock, you turn to look back at the village. From this new perspective, it looks like something from a postcard or a dream. The buildings are silhouetted against the darkening sky, their lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Palm trees sway gently in the evening breeze, their fronds rustling with a sound like distant rain. Children's laughter carries across the water from somewhere along the shoreline, high and clear and joyful. The boat navigates through the harbor with easy grace, weaving between anchored vessels and following a channel that's clearly familiar to your captain. You pass close enough to other boats to see their occupants preparing for their own evening adventures. On one, an elderly woman is arranging flowers in a small shrine at the bow. On another, two young men are carefully checking their fishing lines and adjusting their tackle boxes. The water beneath you is gradually becoming deeper, and its color shifts from the clear, shallow green of the harbor to a deeper blue-green that speaks of greater depths. You can no longer see the bottom, but somehow this doesn't feel concerning. Instead, there's something mysterious and inviting about the unknown depths, as if they hold secrets and wonders waiting to be discovered. The shoreline begins to change as well. The developed area of the village gives way to more natural coastline, stretches of mangrove forest with their distinctive root systems extending into the water, and small beaches where the sand glows almost white in the fading light. Occasionally, you spot a bird wading in the shallows, moving with deliberate slowness as it searches for food. Your body has fully adjusted to the boat's movement now, and you find yourself swaying naturally with its gentle motion. The rhythm is deeply soothing, like being rocked in a cradle suspended over the water. Your breathing has synchronized with the boat's movement and the engine's steady pulse, creating a kind of meditation in motion. The air temperature is perfect, warm enough that you don't need any extra layers, but with just enough coolness to keep you comfortable and alert. When the breeze picks up, it brings with it a fine mist from the bow spray, tiny droplets that touch your skin like a gentle blessing. The salt in the air makes everything taste slightly of the sea, and you realize you're unconsciously licking your lips to savor this clean, elemental flavor. Somchai adjusts the throttle slightly, and the boat's speed increases just enough to create a more pronounced breeze across the deck. This is clearly a man who knows his waters intimately. He navigates without seeming to think about it, his attention free to focus on the subtle signs that will lead to good fishing. Occasionally, he points out something of interest, a particular formation of rocks, a place where the water changes color slightly, or a distant bird whose behavior might indicate the presence of fish below. The sun is now approaching the horizon directly ahead of you, and its reflection creates a golden pathway across the water that seems to lead directly to your boat. For a moment, it feels as though you're traveling along this luminous road, following a trail of light towards some peaceful destination beyond the visible world. The illusion is so complete that you almost forget you're on a fishing expedition, lost instead in the simple beauty of this perfect evening hour. Other boats are visible in the distance, some heading out like yourselves, others already anchored at promising spots where their occupants have begun the patient work of fishing. The sight of these distant vessels doesn't disturb the sense of solitude. Instead, they add to the feeling of being part of something larger, a gentle community of people who understand the deep satisfaction of being on the water as day transitions into night. As you observe these distant companions scattered across the water, footsteps approach along the weathered dock, planks behind you. The steps have a particular rhythm, unhurried but purposeful, the gait of someone who has walked these same boards countless times through decades of evenings, just like this one. You turn to see a figure emerging from the gentle shadows cast by a cluster of fishing nets hanging to dry. And even in the fading light, there's something immediately reassuring about his presence. Captain Somchai moves with the easy confidence of a man who has spent more of his life on water than on land. His weathered hands carry a small canvas bag, and his bare feet make almost no sound against the dock despite his solid frame. He's wearing a simple cotton shirt that has been softened by salt air and countless washings, the fabric moving gently in the evening breeze. When he smiles, the corners of his eyes crinkle in a way that speaks of years spent squinting into ocean sunrises and sunsets. "Good evening," he says in English, touched with the musical cadence of Thai, his voice carrying the kind of calm authority that immediately puts you at ease. There's no rush in his greeting, no sense that this is anything other than the most natural thing in the world. Meeting a stranger at dusk to spend hours together on the quiet water. His presence feels like an extension of the peaceful evening itself. He gestures toward a long-tail boat, moored at the end of the dock, and as you walk together in companionable silence, you notice how his feet seem to know every loose board and uneven joint in the weathered planking. The boat he leads you to is beautiful in its simplicity, perhaps 30 feet of gracefully curved hull painted in deep blue with touches of gold trim that catch the last rays of sunlight. The wood has been polished smooth by years of salt spray and careful maintenance, and you can smell the pleasant mixture of teak oil and ocean that rises from its surfaces. The long-tail engine sits at the stern like a piece of functional sculpture, its propeller shaft extending far behind the boat in the traditional design that gives these vessels their name. Captain Somchai runs his hand along the engine housing with obvious affection, checking connections and adjustments with movements so practiced they seem almost unconscious. Everything about his interaction with the boat speaks of a deep, intuitive partnership built over many years. "She knows these waters better than I do," he says with gentle humor, patting the gunwale as if greeting an old friend. You step aboard, feeling the subtle give of the boat as it responds to your weight, and immediately sense the difference between solid land and this floating world that will be your home for the next few hours. The deck beneath your feet has been worn smooth by countless fishing expeditions, and there's something deeply satisfying about the way the boat feels alive beneath you, moving ever so slightly with the gentle harbor swells. Captain Somchai begins preparing for departure, with movements that are both efficient and unhurried. He checks the fuel line, adjusts the position of several fishing rods that lie along the boat's edges, and ensures that a large cooler filled with ice is properly secured amidships. Each action flows naturally into the next, and watching him work is almost meditative. There's no wasted motion, no uncertainty, just the quiet competence of someone completely at home in his element. He offers you a seat on a cushioned bench that runs along one side of the boat, positioned perfectly to give you a clear view forward while keeping you stable and comfortable. The cushion has been warmed by the day's sun and still holds that heat, creating a pleasant contrast with the cooling air. From this vantage point, you can see the entire length of the boat stretching ahead of you, and beyond that, the harbour opening up toward the darkening sea. "We'll head out slowly," Captain Somchai explains, his hands moving over the engine controls with practiced ease. "No need to hurry. The fish will wait for us." There's wisdom in this approach that extends far beyond fishing, a recognition that some of life's best experiences can't be rushed, that anticipation itself is part of the pleasure. The engine comes to life with a gentle puttering sound that somehow seems to fit perfectly with the peaceful evening atmosphere. As you begin to move away from the dock, the sensation is initially so gentle that you almost don't realize you're in motion. The harbour water is calm, disturbed only by the softest ripples from your boat's passage, and the feeling is more like gliding than travelling. The dock slowly recedes behind you, along with the small collection of waterfront buildings that house tackle shops and fishing supply stores, their windows beginning to glow with warm artificial light as evening deepens. Captain Somchai steers with one hand resting lightly on the tiller, his attention divided between the water ahead and the various other boats moving through the harbour. There's a quiet etiquette to these evening departures, everyone moving at a respectful pace, no one creating unnecessary wake or disturbance. Occasionally, he raises a hand in greeting to other fishermen, and they respond in kind, small gestures of mutual recognition among people who share this particular passion. The air begins to change as you move away from shore. The warmer, more settled atmosphere of the harbour gradually gives way to the fresher, more dynamic air of open water. You can taste the difference. There's a cleaner, more mineral quality to the breeze now, carrying scents of deeper water and distant islands. Your hair begins to move more freely in the increased airflow, and you feel your body naturally relaxing into the rhythm of the boat's gentle progress. First time night fishing? Captain Somchai asks, though there's no judgment in the question, only friendly curiosity. When you nod, he smiles in a way that suggests he remembers his own first evening on the water. It's different from day fishing, he continues, his voice easily audible over the soft engine sound. More patient, more, how do you say, thoughtful. The fish behave differently in darkness, and we must behave differently too. As if to illustrate his point, he reduces the engine speed even further, and the boat settles into an even more relaxed pace. The sun has now slipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky painted in layers of deep orange, soft pink, and gathering purple. Stars are beginning to appear in the darkest patches of sky, though they're still faint compared to what you know will come later when full darkness arrives. The coastline begins to recede into the gathering dusk, transforming from a collection of specific buildings and landmarks into a softer, more impressionistic outline dotted with points of light. This gradual separation from land feels significant, as if you're transitioning not just geographically, but into a different state of being, one where time moves more slowly and the usual urgencies of daily life lose their grip. Captain Somchai begins sharing some of his knowledge about the evening's fishing prospects, but his manner of speaking is so unhurried and gentle that the information becomes part of the overall atmosphere of calm rather than instruction to be memorized. He talks about how certain fish become more active as darkness falls, how the changing light affects their feeding patterns, how the gentle evening breeze might influence where they choose to position the boat. The important thing, he says, adjusting their heading slightly toward a distant point where several other boats have already anchored, is to be present. The fish, they can sense when someone is impatient, when someone is thinking about other things. They prefer fishermen who are truly here, in this moment. His words carry the weight of experience, but also something deeper, a philosophy about how to approach not just fishing, but life itself. The water around the boat has deepened in color, reflecting the darkening sky so perfectly that at moments it seems as if you're suspended between two identical worlds of deepening blue. The gentle wake trailing behind you creates the only disturbance in this perfect mirror, and even that seems to heal itself within moments, the water returning to its undisturbed state as if the boat had never passed. Other vessels are now visible as points of light scattered across the water ahead, some stationary, already settled into their chosen fishing spots, others still moving slowly toward their preferred locations. There's something almost musical about this distribution of lights, like notes scattered across the darkening staff of the horizon, each boat contributing to a larger composition of evening tranquility. As you continue your unhurried journey toward the fishing grounds, Captain Somchai begins preparing the tackle with the same methodical care he brought to preparing the boat itself. He selects hooks and weights with obvious consideration, checking each piece of equipment before setting it in its designated place. The fishing rods, already rigged and ready, lie along the boat's gunwales like sleeping sentinels, waiting for their time to serve. The temperature has dropped just enough to make the evening air feel perfectly comfortable against your skin, warm enough to remain relaxed, cool enough to feel refreshing. This is that magical hour when the day's heat gives way to night's coolness, creating a brief period of perfect balance that seems to exist specifically for peaceful pursuits like this one. Your eyes are gradually adjusting to the decreasing light, and you begin to notice details that weren't apparent earlier. The way the water's surface catches and holds the last light of evening, creating subtle patterns that shift and change with each gentle swell. The distant mountains now appear as darker silhouettes against the star-filled sky, their familiar daytime clarity transformed into something more mysterious and dreamlike. Captain Somchai seems to sense your growing appreciation for these evening transformations. Every night is different on the water, he observes quietly. Same place, same boat, same fisherman, but always something new to discover. His words carry the wisdom of countless nights spent reading the water's moods. And as you settle more comfortably against the weathered wooden gunwale, you begin to understand what he means. The boat has now moved beyond the protective embrace of the bay, and the water beneath you has taken on an entirely different personality. Where the sheltered waters near shore held you with gentle, predictable swells, out here the sea reveals its true character, vast, rhythmic, and infinitely patient. The long tailboat rises and falls with a motion that feels almost like breathing. Not the quick, shallow breaths of nervousness, but the deep, steady respiration of someone lost in peaceful sleep. Each swell approaches from the distant horizon, a barely perceptible darkness moving across the star-reflected surface, and as it reaches you, the boat lifts with surprising grace. There's a moment of suspension where you feel weightless against the night sky, before the gentle descent into the trough between waves. Captain Somchai has reduced the engine to its lowest setting, just enough to maintain position and direction. The sound has changed from the earlier purposeful rumble to something more like a cat's purr, steady, comforting, almost musical in the way it harmonizes with the lap of water against the hull. Occasionally, he adjusts the long rudder with the smallest movement of his wrist, reading currents and wind patterns that remain invisible to you but speak to him as clearly as printed words. The fishing lines trail behind the boat now, their paths marked by the faintest phosphorescent disturbance in the dark water. You watch these glowing threads weave and dance, appearing and disappearing as the boat's movement creates tiny eddies and swirls. There's something mesmerizing about following their underwater ballet, the way they seem to write temporary messages in a language of light before the sea erases them and begins again. Your hands rest naturally on the smooth bamboo rod, feeling every subtle vibration transmitted through the line. The weight at the end moves through layers of water you cannot see, exploring depths where different temperatures mix and merge, where fish move in schools guided by instincts older than memory. Through your fingertips, you sense this hidden world, not through dramatic strikes or sudden pulls, but through the almost imperceptible changes in tension that speak of currents shifting, of the line brushing past underwater formations, of marine life investigating this strange visitor to their domain. The night air carries scents that change with each shift in wind direction. Sometimes you catch the mineral richness of deep water, clean and sharp, carrying hints of the underwater mountains and valleys that shape the currents far below. Other moments bring warmer fragrances, the lingering sweetness of plankton blooms, the salt-tinged freshness of wind that has traveled across hundreds of miles of open ocean. Occasionally, even the distant green scent of islands, invisible in the darkness, but present nonetheless. Your eyes have grown accustomed to the subtle variations in darkness now, and the sea reveals details that were hidden during those first moments away from shore. The water is not uniformly black, but shows patches of deeper and lighter darkness, areas where different currents meet and create patterns visible only to patient observation. Some sections appear almost mirror smooth, reflecting the stars with perfect clarity, while others show the slight texture of wind across the surface, breaking the reflections into countless dancing fragments. Captain Somchai reaches into a worn canvas bag beside him and withdraws what appears to be a thermos, its metal surface dulled by salt air and use. He pours steaming liquid into 2 small cups, the aroma immediately identifiable as Thai tea, rich with spices and sweetened condensed milk. The scent mingles with the sea air in a way that seems impossible but perfect. The warmth of cardamom and star anise creating a bridge between the comfort of land and the vast mystery of the ocean. He offers you one of the cups, its ceramic warm against your palms, and you sip the sweet, aromatic tea while the boat continues its hypnotic dance with the swells. The liquid warmth spreads through your chest, a pleasant contrast to the cooling night air on your face and arms. This simple pleasure, hot tea on a gently moving boat under infinite stars, creates a moment of such perfect contentment that you find yourself wanting to hold on to it, to memorize every sensation before it dissolves into the flow of time. The rhythm of the open water begins to synchronize with your breathing, your heartbeat, the way you blink and swallow and simply exist. There's no fighting this rhythm, no sense that you need to resist or control it. Instead, you find yourself settling into its pattern as naturally as you might sink into a comfortable chair. The boat rises, you inhale. The boat settles, you exhale. The engine purrs, your pulse steadies. The stars wheel overhead in their ancient courses, and you become part of this larger rhythm that encompasses boat and sea and sky. Occasionally, Captain Somchai makes small adjustments to the lines, checking the depth or changing the lure's action with practiced movements that never disturb the boat's peaceful motion. His hands work with the unconscious skill of decades, while his attention remains attuned to the subtle signs that indicate fish moving in the depths below. He doesn't speak much, but his presence is companionable, like sharing silence with an old friend who understands that some experiences are diminished by too many words. The tea grows cooler in your hands, but you continue to hold the cup, enjoying its weight and warmth, the way the ceramic has absorbed and now radiates back the heat it contained. Simple objects take on different meanings out here on the open water. A cup becomes an anchor to comfort. A bamboo fishing rod becomes a direct connection to the mysterious world below the surface. The wooden deck beneath your feet becomes the foundation of your small, safe world, moving through infinite space. You notice how the boat's movement affects your perception of the stars above. As you rise and fall with the swells, different constellations seem to dance and sway, creating the illusion that the entire sky is gently rocking. The Southern Cross maintains its steady position, but the stars around it appear to trace small arcs across your field of vision, as if the universe itself is breathing along with the sea. The water temperature seems to be dropping slightly as the night deepens, and with it comes a different quality of sound. The gentle splash of waves against the hull takes on a crisper note, and the engine's vibration travels through the cooler water with subtle changes in pitch and resonance. Even the fishing line creates different sounds as it moves through the water, sometimes silent, sometimes producing the faintest whisper as it encounters currents or the wake of marine life. Your body has found its natural position now, balanced and relaxed against the boat's movements. Your muscles no longer tense in anticipation of each rise and fall. Instead, they remain loose and responsive, moving with the motion rather than against it. This physical surrender to the rhythm of the sea creates a deeper mental relaxation, a letting go that extends beyond the simple act of fishing into something more profound and restorative. The night continues its patient unfolding, and the gentle rhythm of open waters carries you forward through darkness that feels not like absence, but like presence. The presence of space and time, and the eternal conversation between wind and wave, between the solid reality of the wooden boat and the fluid mystery of the sea that supports and surrounds you. The rhythm of preparation begins to assert itself now, a different cadence from the traveling that has brought you to this place. Your hands move toward the nets that lie coiled in the forward section of the boat, their presence felt even in darkness through the subtle shift in the boat's weight distribution. The way shadows gather more densely where the woven mesh creates pockets of deeper night. The stars above seem to anticipate this moment, their light becoming somehow more focused, more purposeful, as if they too understand that the real work of the evening is about to begin. Your fingers find the edge of the first net, and immediately you're struck by its texture. Not the rough hemp you might expect, but something softer, more pliable. These nets have been worked by countless hands over many seasons. The fibers worn smooth by salt water and sun, by the patient repetition of casting and hauling, folding and storing. There's a warmth to them still, retained from the day's heat, and as you lift a section into your lap, you can feel how the mesh has been shaped by its purpose, each diamond-shaped opening slightly elongated from the pull of fish and current. The boat captain moves with practiced economy beside you, his bare feet silent on the wooden planks as he positions himself at the stern where the net will eventually pay out. You watch him in your peripheral vision, noting how he tests the wind direction with a wetted finger held up to the night air, how he checks the set of the rudder with a gentle touch, ensuring everything is aligned for the delicate work ahead. His movements carry the authority of someone who has done this thousands of times, yet there's no hurry in them, no urgency that might disturb the contemplative mood that has settled over everything like a gentle blanket. The weight of the net in your hands is substantial, but not burdensome, distributed as it is across the breadth of your lap and arms. You begin to work through it slowly, checking for tangles, feeling for the small lead weights sewn into the bottom edge that will help the net sink properly when deployed. Each weight is slightly different, some round, some teardrop-shaped, all worn smooth by use. They click together softly as you work, creating a quiet percussion that mingles with the lap of water against the hull and the distant whisper of wind through the rigging. Above, the constellation patterns have shifted slightly since you first noticed them. The great wheel of the night sky continuing its ancient rotation. You find yourself glancing up between handfuls of net, catching glimpses of stars framed by the mesh, their light filtering through the diamond openings in a way that creates an ever-changing pattern of illumination, across your hands and lap. There's something mesmerizing about this interplay of starlight and shadow, the way the net seems to capture pieces of the night sky and hold them for just a moment before releasing them back to darkness. The preparation becomes meditative, your hands learning the rhythm of checking and folding, ensuring that each section of net lies properly arranged for quick deployment. There's a specific technique to this, you realize, watching how the captain demonstrates the proper way to coil a section so that it will run out freely without snagging. Your fingers begin to understand the pattern, the way each fold builds upon the last, creating a careful architecture of readiness that will prove crucial when the time comes to cast. The texture of the water has changed subtly around you, no longer the deep ocean swells of your earlier journey, but something more complex, more layered. You can sense the presence of the underwater landscape beneath the boat, not through sight, but through subtle variations in the way the hull moves, the way sounds carry differently, the way the air itself seems to hold different qualities of moisture and warmth. This is fishing water, you realize, a place where currents meet and create the conditions that draw fish up from the depths. Your hands have found their own wisdom now, working through the net with increasing confidence, while your mind remains free to absorb the subtleties of the night around you. The mesh slides through your fingers like liquid caught in a web of intention, each strand a line of connection to the underwater world you're preparing to explore. You can feel the intelligence built into its construction, the way the opening sizes vary subtly from section to section, the strategic placement of floats and weights, the reinforced edges where the greatest stress will occur. The boat captain lights a small kerosene lantern, its warm glow creating a pool of amber light that doesn't extend far, but provides just enough illumination to check the final details of preparation. The light flickers gently with the boat's movement, casting dancing shadows that make the net seem alive in your hands, its mesh patterns shifting and flowing like something organic, something that has grown rather than been made. You notice how the flame's reflection wavers on the water surface nearby, creating a small galaxy of light that mirrors the vast one overhead. In this circle of lamplight, the work takes on an intimate quality, as if you and the captain have created a small world unto yourselves, a space of focused purpose, floating in the vast darkness of the night ocean. The warmth from the lantern touches your face and hands, a gentle counterpoint to the cooling night air, and you find yourself appreciating this balance of elements: the warm light and cool darkness, the solid boat and fluid sea, the patient preparation and the anticipation of action to come. The net is nearly ready now, arranged in careful coils that speak of generations of accumulated wisdom about how to work with both the sea's power and its subtlety. Your hands rest for a moment on the completed preparation, feeling the slight vibration that travels through the mesh from the boat's movement, the way it seems to pulse gently with the rhythm of the waves. There's something alive about it now, poised and ready, like a held breath, waiting for the right moment to be released. Around you, the night fishing grounds reveal their character through a dozen small signs. the way phosphorescence occasionally glimmers in the boat's wake, the distant splash of something feeding at the surface, the subtle change in the wind's direction as it encounters the complexity of currents below. These are the signals that experienced fishermen read like a language, and though you're still learning this vocabulary, you can sense the richness of communication happening between sea and sky, between the visible and invisible worlds that intersect in these dark waters. The captain extinguishes the lantern, and your eyes need a moment to readjust to the starlight. But when they do, you find that the night seems even more beautiful than before, the brief interlude of artificial light having somehow intensified your appreciation for the natural illumination that surrounds you. The stars appear brighter, their reflections on the water more distinct, the entire seascape more alive with subtle movements and shifting patterns of light and shadow that speak of the abundant life moving through the depths below. Now, as your awareness settles into this softer rhythm of starlight and shadow, something extraordinary begins to unfold across the water's surface. The moon, which had been hiding behind a wisp of cloud, emerges with quiet dignity, casting its silver radiance across the gentle swells that roll beneath your long-tail boat. The transformation is immediate and breathtaking. Where moments before there had been only the gentle sparkle of starlight on water, now there are ribbons of luminescence stretching toward the horizon, each wave crest catching and holding the moonbeams like cupped palms gathering precious water. Your Thai companion adjusts his position slightly, the boat rocking with a motion so subtle it feels more like breathing than movement. The sound of water against the hull changes too, becoming more musical somehow, as if the moon's presence has tuned the very wavelets to a more harmonious frequency. You can hear the soft whisper of wind through the rigging, carrying with it the faint perfume of jasmine from some distant shore, mingled with the clean salt tang of the open sea. The moonlight doesn't simply illuminate the water, it transforms it into something altogether magical. Each swell becomes a moving mirror, tilting and shifting to catch the lunar glow at different angles, creating an endless dance of silver pathways that appear and disappear in mesmerizing patterns. You find yourself watching one particular trail of light as it stretches from the moon's reflection toward your boat, seeming to invite you to follow its shimmering road across the dark expanse of the Gulf of Thailand. The water itself seems to have taken on a different character in this moonlight. During the day, these same waters appeared blue-green and opaque, holding their secrets well below the surface. But now, touched by lunar radiance, they become translucent in places, revealing glimpses of the life moving in the shallow depths. A school of small fish passes nearby, their silver bodies creating brief flashes of brilliance as they turn in unison, like scattered coins catching candlelight in a dark room. Your fishing guide points quietly toward the water, his weathered finger indicating something just below the surface. Following his gaze, you see the ghostly outline of a ray gliding through the moonlit depths, its wings undulating with the fluid grace of silk scarves floating on an invisible breeze. The creature moves without haste, completely at peace in its nocturnal world, and watching it fills you with a similar sense of unhurried contentment. boat drifts slowly, carried by currents that seem to know exactly where they're going, even if you don't. This effortless movement feels profoundly restful, like being gently rocked in the arms of something ancient and benevolent. The Thai waters have their own rhythm, different from any other sea, influenced by the monsoons and tides, the river deltas and limestone karsts that shape this unique coastline. Tonight, that rhythm is particularly gentle, as if the ocean itself is settling into sleep. You notice how the moonlight catches the traditional decorations on your long-tail boat, the carved wooden prow, the colorful ribbons tied to the engine housing, the small spirit house mounted near the stern. These details, barely visible in the starlight, now emerge as distinct elements of the boat's character, each one telling a story of Thai maritime tradition and the deep respect these waters command from those who make their living upon them. The temperature has dropped just slightly with the deepening of night, and you feel the whisper of cooler air moving across the water. It carries different scents now. The green smell of mangrove swamps from some invisible coastline, the mineral scent of limestone cliffs being caressed by waves, and underlying it all, the vast clean emptiness of open ocean stretching toward distant countries whose shores you cannot see, but somehow sense in the darkness. Your fishing companion begins to hum softly, almost under his breath, a Thai melody that seems perfectly suited to this moonlit seascape. The tune is unfamiliar to you, but its cadence matches the gentle rocking of the boat and the rhythm of waves against the hull, as if it were composed specifically for nights like this one. The sound doesn't disturb the tranquility. Rather, it becomes part of it, another thread in the peaceful tapestry of sounds that surrounds you. The moon climbs higher, and as it does, its reflection on the water shifts and changes. What began as a long silver pathway has now become a broader pool of light, with your boat floating near its center like a dark leaf on a luminous pond. You can see other boats scattered across the distant water, their positions marked by small points of warm light, other fishermen pursuing their quiet craft in the Thai tradition that stretches back through countless generations. The water around your boat begins to show new signs of life. Tiny organisms, disturbed by your passage, create brief sparkles of bioluminescence in your wake. Each sparkle lasts only a moment, like fireflies winking in and out of existence, adding their own magic to the moonlit scene. Your guide nods approvingly at these signs, reading the water with eyes trained by decades of experience on these familiar seas. As you watch the interplay of moonlight and water, you begin to notice subtler patterns in the dance of illumination. The waves don't move randomly. They follow ancient rhythms dictated by wind and current, tide and temperature. Each swell has its own personality, its own way of catching and releasing the light, and together they create a constantly shifting display that no artist could ever fully capture. No photographer could completely freeze in time. The sound of your boat moving through this moonlit seascape becomes a meditation in itself. The gentle splash of water against the bow, the soft creak of wood adjusting to each swell, the distant purr of the long-tail engine maintaining just enough power to keep you positioned in the moving current. These sounds blend together into something like music, a nocturnal symphony performed by the sea itself, with your boat as both instrument and audience. You find your breathing naturally adjusting to match this aquatic rhythm, each inhalation coinciding with the lift of a wave, each exhalation with its gentle descent. The moonlight seems to be breathing too, growing slightly brighter as clouds thin and dimming gently as wisps of vapor drift across the lunar face. This cosmic breath feels connected to your own, as if you, the moon, and the sea have found a common pulse that unites all living things under the vast canopy of the night sky. Your Thai companion adjusts one of the fishing lines, his movements economical and practiced in the moonlight. The line disappears into the illuminated water, carrying its offerings down into depths where other creatures pursue their own nocturnal activities. Fish that sleep by day are now stirring to life, following food chains and instincts that have guided their kind for millions of years through these warm tropical waters. The moonlight reveals textures on the water's surface that would be invisible at any other time. Patches of calm water appear almost mirror smooth, while areas touched by gentle breezes show tiny wavelets that catch the light like scattered sequins on dark fabric. The boundary between water and air becomes less distinct in this ethereal illumination, as if the elements are dissolving into each other, creating a realm that belongs neither fully to sea nor sky, but to something in between. A warm current passes beneath your boat, and you can actually see its effects on the surface. A slight change in the pattern of the moonlight's dance. A subtle shift in the way the waves form and reform. These thermal rivers within the sea carry nutrients and sea life, connecting distant parts of the ocean in an invisible network of flowing abundance that supports all the life you're witnessing tonight. The peace you feel isn't the simple absence of disturbance, but something more active and alive, the presence of perfect harmony between all the elements surrounding you. The moon, the water, the gentle night air, the rhythmic sounds of your boat's passage, the distant lights of other vessels, the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface somewhere in the darkness. All these elements work together to create a moment of completeness that feels both temporary and eternal. Witnessing tonight. The peace you feel isn't the simple absence of disturbance, but something more active and alive, the presence of perfect harmony between all the elements surrounding you. The moon, the water, the gentle night air, the rhythmic sounds of your boat's passage, the distant lights of other vessels, the occasional splash of a fish breaking the surface somewhere in the darkness. All these elements work together to create a moment of completeness that feels both temporary and eternal. Your fishing guide makes a subtle gesture with his weathered hand, and the engine's soft puttering gradually diminishes to nothing. The boat glides forward on its own momentum now, carried by the sea's natural currents and the residual energy of its movement. You drift into a realm of true quiet, where the art of silent fishing begins. Here, in this floating sanctuary, every sound becomes magnified and meaningful. The soft lap of water against the boat's wooden hull creates a rhythm as ancient as breathing itself. The guide moves with the fluid precision of someone who has performed these motions thousands of times beneath thousands of different night skies. His bare feet make no sound as they shift across the boat's worn planks. You watch him prepare the fishing lines with movements so economical and graceful. They seem choreographed. His hands work in the dim light with an intuitive knowledge that needs no illumination. Fingers finding the right hooks, the proper weights, the exact length of line that will reach down through the dark water to where the fish move in their own mysterious patterns. The silence is not empty but full, pregnant with possibility and alive with the subtle sounds that only emerge when the louder world falls away. You become aware of the small creaks and sighs of the wooden boat as it responds to the gentle swells. The long tailboat breathes with the sea, its hull flexing slightly with each wave, creating a soft percussion of wood and water that feels more like music than mere sound. Your own breathing begins to match this rhythm without conscious effort, your chest rising and falling in time with the boat's gentle dance on the dark surface. When your guide finally casts the first line, it happens with such quiet skill that you almost miss it. The weight disappears into the black water with barely a whisper, creating rings that spread outward before being absorbed back into the sea's constant motion. He hands you a line of your own, and you feel the rough texture of the cord between your fingers, still slightly damp from the night air. The weight at the end pulls gently downward, connecting you to the mysterious depths below through this simple thread. Holding the fishing line, you discover an entirely new way of experiencing the ocean. Through your fingertips, you can feel the underwater currents as they tug and release the weight far beneath the surface. Each small movement travels up through the line to your hand, creating a direct connection to a world you cannot see but can suddenly sense. The line becomes an extension of your nervous system, carrying information from the deep places where bioluminescent creatures drift like living stars and fish move through liquid darkness guided by instincts older than memory. Your guide settles into his own quiet vigil. His weathered face turns slightly toward the water with an expression of patient attention. He holds his line with the same relaxed focus you might bring to meditation, alert but not tense, aware but not anxious. His presence beside you feels companionable without being intrusive. Two people sharing the same peaceful purpose under the vast dome of the night sky. Occasionally, he adjusts his position with movements so small and natural, they seem like breathing. The boat continues its slow drift across waters that reflect the scattered light of stars, like a dark mirror scattered with silver coins. Each gentle swell lifts and lowers your floating platform in a rhythm so gradual it feels more like the earth itself breathing than movement across the sea's surface. You begin to understand how fishermen can spend entire nights like this, held in suspension between the sky and the depths, waiting for that moment when life from the underwater world announces itself through the trembling of a line. Minutes pass, or perhaps hours. Time moves differently here in this bubble of tranquil focus. The line in your hands occasionally trembles with small movements that might be fish or might simply be the pulse of the current far below. Each tiny vibration sends a small thrill up your arm, a reminder that you are connected to an ecosystem that continues its ancient rhythms regardless of the human world above. Schools of fish move through their underwater highways while you sit in perfect stillness above them, feeling their presence through the sensitive thread that disappears into their realm. The art of this kind of fishing, you begin to realize, has less to do with catching anything and more to do with learning to wait with complete presence. Your guide demonstrates this mastery simply by being, his attention focused but relaxed, his breathing steady, his body completely at ease with the boat's gentle movements. He exists in perfect equilibrium with his environment, neither forcing anything nor missing anything, simply available to whatever the night might offer. A small fish brushes against your line somewhere in the depths, and the sensation travels up through the cord like a message written in a language of touch. Your pulse quickens slightly, but you resist the urge to jerk or react. The sounds of Thai wrap around you like a gentle linguistic blanket, foreign yet somehow familiar, as if your body remembers this rhythm from some ancient dream of warm nights and storytelling voices. The boat seems to respond to his words, settling into an even gentler drift, as if the water itself is listening. Small fish continue to dimple the surface around you, their presence marked by tiny circles that catch fragments of starlight before dissolving back into darkness. The bamboo creaks its quiet approval, and somewhere in the distance, the faint sound of temple bells carries across the water, so soft you might be imagining it, adding its own whispered blessing to the night. Gradually, Niran's Thai fades into English, translating not just words, but the very soul of what he's been sharing. He speaks of his grandfather, who taught him to read the water's moods, to understand the secret conversations between moon and tide. His voice remains barely above a whisper as he describes learning to see the night, not as an absence of day, but as a presence all its own. You feel the weight of generations in his words, the accumulated wisdom of countless nights spent on these waters, countless stories shared in the protective darkness. The fishing line in your hand seems to vibrate with connection to this oral tradition, as if every angler who has ever waited patiently in the dark has contributed to the invisible thread that binds all-night fishers together. His grandfather's hands, he tells you, could feel a fish's curiosity through the bamboo rod before the fish itself knew it was interested in the bait. This knowing, passed down through whispered lessons on boats like this one, becomes part of the living story being woven around you. Another voice joins the conversation from somewhere nearby. Another fisherman in his own long-tail boat, invisible in the darkness but close enough for whispered exchange. The two men speak in Thai again, their voices creating a gentle counterpoint across the water. You realize you're witnessing something timeless, the way stories travel from boat to boat on quiet nights, how wisdom spreads across the water through voices that barely disturb the air yet carry vast distances in the still darkness. The second fisherman's boat must be drifting parallel to yours, close enough for conversation, but far enough to maintain the illusion of solitude. Occasionally, you hear the soft splash of his paddle as he makes a subtle course correction, or the gentle knock of bamboo against bamboo as his fishing rods adjust with the boat's movement. Their conversation flows like a meditation, unhurried and thoughtful, each man taking time to consider before responding, as if the night itself demands this slower pace of communication. Now, Niran translates fragments of this floating dialogue, sharing how the other fisherman speaks of reading weather in the behavior of water birds, of knowing which phases of the moon call to which species of fish. The knowledge being exchanged is practical yet poetic, grounded in decades of observation, yet touched with the mystery that clings to all deep understanding of natural rhythms. You feel privileged to overhear this quiet exchange, to be included in this floating classroom where curriculum consists of patience, observation, and the accumulated wisdom of lives spent in harmony with water and sky. The Thai language seems perfectly designed for these whispered exchanges, its tonal nature allowing for incredible subtlety, even at the lowest volumes. Listening to their conversation is like overhearing a musical duet, each voice contributing its own melody line to a composition that includes the water's movement, the creaking of boats, and the vast silence of the surrounding night. Your fishing line remains steady in your relaxed grip, but you realize you're catching something more precious than fish. You're gathering the intangible treasure of human connection across cultural boundaries. The other fisherman's voice grows more distant now, and you realize his boat is drifting away on currents that carry him toward different waters. The farewell in Thai is soft as a blessing, and Niran responds with equal gentleness. Soon the night returns to its previous intimacy, just you and your guide, and the endless conversation between boat and water. But the presence of that other voice has added a new dimension to your understanding of this floating world. You're part of a scattered community of night fishers, each in their own vessel, but all connected by shared experience and whispered wisdom. Niran settles back into contemplative silence, but the quality of quiet has changed. It now carries the resonance of stories shared, of languages that bridge the space between souls even when words remain untranslated. The fishing line in your hand feels different too, more alive somehow, as if it now carries not just your hope for fish, but your connection to this ancient tradition of patient waiting and whispered communion with the night. The water around your boat seems to have absorbed the conversation, holding it like a liquid library where all the stories ever shared on these waters continue to live and breathe. Each gentle wave carries fragments of countless nights like this one, countless whispered exchanges between fishers who understand that the true catch often has nothing to do with what swims beneath the surface. The bamboo of your boat creaks its agreement, a sound that speaks in its own whispered language of growth and strength, of roots that reach deep while branches sway gently with whatever wind comes their way. Your body has found perfect equilibrium in this floating meditation hall, where stories are currency and patience is both means and end. The Thai phrases still echo softly in your memory, their musical cadence creating a gentle rhythm that synchronizes with your breathing, with your heartbeat, with the eternal pulse of water meeting wood. You realize that you're being initiated into something ancient and precious, the tradition of night fishers who understand that the greatest catches are often the ones that can't be measured or weighed, can't be displayed or sold, but can only be shared in whispered voices on dark waters under infinite stars. The boat continues its unhurried journey through liquid darkness that holds all stories, carries all whispered wisdom, and connects all patient souls who choose to trust the night with their hopes and dreams. Around you, the water spreads like a vast manuscript, written in a language older than words, and you are learning to read its gentle script one ripple at a time. The manuscript of water continues to reveal its secrets as your fishing line suddenly grows taut, the subtle resistance traveling up through the weathered bamboo rod and into your palms. There's no dramatic struggle, no violent pulling, just a gentle rhythmic weight that speaks of something alive moving through the midnight depths below. The fisherman's calloused hand appears beside yours on the rod, his touch steady and reassuring, guiding your movements with the patience of someone who has spent countless nights in communion with these dark waters. You feel the fish's movements through the line, like a conversation conducted in tugs and releases, a dialogue between surface and depths that requires no translation. The creature below moves with unhurried purpose, occasionally pausing as if considering its next move, then continuing its underwater dance with movements that feel almost ceremonial. The boat rocks gently with each subtle shift, the long-tail propeller silent now, allowing this midnight negotiation to unfold in its own time. The fisherman's weathered fingers work alongside yours, and you notice how his hands move with the same rhythm as the water itself, never forcing, never rushing, simply responding to what the night offers. His breathing is slow and measured, and you find your own breath naturally falling into sync with his, creating a shared rhythm that seems to calm even the fish below. The bamboo rod bends slightly, not with strain, but with grace, like a reed yielding to evening wind while maintaining its essential strength. Around you, the other fishermen on nearby boats have noticed your catch, their lanterns creating a constellation of warm approval across the water's surface. But their attention feels celebratory rather than invasive, like being welcomed into an ancient fraternity of patient souls who understand that the true joy lies not in the prize, but in the gentle persistence required to earn it. Someone calls out softly in Thai, words you don't understand, but whose tone carries unmistakable warmth and encouragement. The water around your boat begins to shimmer with an almost imperceptible disturbance as your midnight companion draws closer to the surface. You catch your first glimpse of silver moving through liquid darkness, a flash that appears and disappears like a secret being whispered just once. The fisherman beside you makes a soft sound of appreciation, not triumph, but recognition, as if greeting an old friend who has chosen to visit after a long absence. Your arms feel the gentle weight of the fish's movements, but there's no urgency in the sensation. Instead, it feels like being chosen for a slow dance, where each partner must learn to trust the other's rhythm before the steps can flow smoothly. The bamboo rod pulses gently in your grip, transmitting every subtle shift and pause, every moment of consideration from the creature below who seems as curious about you as you are about it. The night air carries the scent of celebration now. Someone nearby has lit a small cooking fire, and the aroma of garlic and chilies mingles with the salt breeze. You realize that other boats have made catches too, and the scattered lanterns across the water have become gathering points for quiet festivities. The sound of gentle laughter drifts across the waves, punctuated by the soft splash of fish being drawn from water and the satisfied murmurs of fishermen who have found success in the patient hours after midnight. But your own catch still moves below, unhurried and thoughtful, as if weighing whether to trust this encounter. The fisherman beside you produces a small net from somewhere in the boat's shadows, but he holds it loosely, ready to assist, but not to force. His eyes meet yours in the lantern light, and you see in them the accumulated wisdom of countless nights like this one, where the goal is not conquest, but connection, not speed, but understanding. The fish rises closer to the surface now, and you can see its shape more clearly through the dark water, elegant and unhurried, with fins that move like silk scarves caught in a gentle current. Its movements have a meditative quality that seems to slow time itself, making each moment feel spacious and unhurried. The creature pauses just below the surface, as if taking a moment to observe this world of air and lantern light that exists above its liquid realm. Your fisherman companion speaks quietly in Thai, his words soft as prayer, and you sense he's offering some form of gratitude or blessing. The tradition of respect between hunter and hunted, between the patient human souls who wait through dark hours and the silver beings who choose to accept their invitation. The net slips into the water with barely a whisper, creating rings that spread outward like visual echoes of a temple bell. And then, with a movement as graceful as everything that has preceded it, your midnight companion allows itself to be lifted from its dark home into the gentle light of the lantern. The fish is beautiful in a way that seems almost ceremonial. Silver scales that catch and scatter the warm glow, eyes that reflect depths you cannot fathom, fins that continue their slow-motion dance even in the unfamiliar medium of air. There's no frantic struggling, no desperate energy, just a quiet dignity that transforms this moment from simple fishing into something approaching reverence. The fisherman cradles the catch with hands that know exactly how to offer comfort even in transition. He speaks again in his soft Thai, words that sound like blessing and gratitude woven together, and you understand without translation that he's honoring both the fish's life and his choice to trust the patient darkness where human hopes and oceanic generosity meet. From the nearby boats comes a gentle chorus of approval, not cheers or celebration in the Western sense, but the quiet acknowledgement of people who understand that success in these waters comes to those who practice patience as both art and meditation. Someone plays a few notes on what sounds like a small wooden flute, the melody threading through the night air like audible starlight. Another voice joins in with humming that harmonizes perfectly with the gentle lapping of waves against wooden hulls. The fisherman places your catch in a woven basket lined with seagrass, creating a bed that seems designed for honored guests rather than simple storage. His movements remain ceremonial, unhurried, as if each gesture is part of a ritual passed down through generations of night fishermen who learn to see their work as cooperation rather than conquest. You notice that even the way he arranges the seagrass speaks of respect, not mere practicality, but thoughtful care for a fellow creature who has participated in tonight's gentle drama. Now the celebration begins in earnest, but it unfolds with the same unhurried grace that has characterized everything about this midnight journey. From one of the nearby boats, someone produces a thermos of tea that steams in the cool night air, the aroma mixing jasmine with something earthier, more mysterious. Cups appear as if by magic, small ceramic vessels that have clearly made this journey many times before, their glazes worn smooth by countless hands and countless nights like this one. The tea, when it reaches your lips, carries flavors that seem to have absorbed the essence of these midnight waters. Warm and complex, with undertones that speak of distant mountains where the leaves first grew, and the patient hands that dried and blended them for moments exactly like this one. The liquid warmth spreads through your chest like contentment made tangible, and you realize that this simple cup of tea tastes like celebration, distilled to its purest essence. Around you, the loose gathering of boats has formed an impromptu floating community, lanterns creating pools of warm light that reflect and multiply on the gentle swells. Someone shares rice wrapped in banana leaves, the grains still warm and fragrant with coconut and spices that dance on your tongue like tiny celebrations. Another boat contributes sliced fruit, mango so sweet it seems to carry concentrated sunshine and segments of something citrusy that adds bright notes to the night's symphony of flavors. The fishermen move between boats with the easy familiarity of old friends, sharing not just food but stories told in multiple languages, Thai mixing with what sounds like Malay, punctuated by universal gestures and the kind of laughter that needs no translation. You find yourself part of conversations you don't fully understand, but somehow comprehend perfectly, included in this floating fellowship by virtue of having shown proper patience and respect to the dark waters that have blessed you all. Your own fisherman companion produces a small bottle from the depths of the boat containing something clear that catches the lantern light like liquid moonbeams. He pours a small amount into your teacup, the addition creating swirls that hypnotically spiral and dissipate. The first sip reveals rice wine so smooth and gentle, it seems to evaporate on your tongue while leaving behind warmth that spreads through your limbs like liquid relaxation. This is celebration distilled to its essence, not loud or boisterous, but deep and connecting, like roots finding water in rich earth. The conversations continue around you in their musical mixture of languages, punctuated by the gentle sounds of the night sea, waves lapping against wooden hulls, the distant call of some night bird, the soft splash of an oar being dipped and lifted in unhurried rhythm. The midnight catch rests peacefully in its bed of seagrass, and somehow its presence seems to have blessed this entire gathering, transforming a collection of individual fishermen into a temporary tribe united by patience, respect, and the generous darkness that has rewarded their vigil with both silver fish and silver moonlight scattered across water that holds them all in its vast, gentle embrace. Time seems to have softened around the edges now, the way old photographs fade at their borders, leaving only the essential center in perfect clarity. The little flotilla has begun to drift apart naturally, each boat following its own invisible current, drawn by the subtle pull of tide and wind into a more spacious arrangement across the darkened bay. Your long-tail boat rocks with the gentlest motion now, freed from the closer company of the other vessels, settling into its own private rhythm with the sea. The engine has been quiet for so long that you've almost forgotten the sound it makes. Only the occasional creak of weathered wood and the whisper of water against the hull mark the passage of these unhurried minutes. Captain Somchai sits with one hand resting lightly on the tiller, though there's no real steering happening now, just the small adjustments that come naturally to someone who has spent decades reading the language of currents and wind through the palms of his hands. The moon has traveled a considerable distance across the sky, no longer the commanding presence it was at midnight, but settling into a more companionable role, like an old friend who knows when to speak and when to simply be present. Its light has grown softer somehow, less dramatic in its illumination of the water, painting the gentle swells with brushstrokes of pearl and shadow that shift and blend in patterns too subtle for the eye to hold on to completely. You find yourself breathing in harmony with the boat's motion, each inhale coinciding with the slight lift as a swell passes beneath, each exhale flowing with the gentle settling back into the trough. It's not something you're doing deliberately, more like a conversation your body has begun having with the sea, a quiet negotiation between your own rhythms and those of this ancient water that has cradled fishing boats for countless generations. The air has taken on a different quality now, carrying hints of something that might be the approaching dawn, though the darkness still seems complete. It's cooler against your skin, moving with less of the heavy stillness that marked the deepest part of the night. Instead, there's the faintest suggestion of circulation, as if the atmosphere itself is beginning to stir from sleep, preparing for the great daily transformation that still lies hours ahead. Other boats appear and disappear in the distance like gentle spirits, their lantern lights dim to soft glows that wink in and out of view as the swells rise and fall between you. Sometimes you catch the faint murmur of voices carried across the water, conversations in Thai that you don't understand, but that somehow need no translation. The universal language of fishermen sharing the patient hours, commenting on the night's small dramas and discoveries. Your own fishing line trails into the depths, forgotten for long stretches, but somehow still maintaining its connection to possibility. Occasionally, you remember to check it, lifting the rod slightly to feel the weight and movement that tells you it's still properly positioned in the water column below. The sinker taps gently against something, perhaps a rock, perhaps just the slight current created by the boat's imperceptible drift, creating a tiny percussion that travels up through the line to your fingers. The catch from earlier rests quietly in its corner, no longer the evening's great excitement, but settled into its role as tomorrow's sustenance. The ice has melted somewhat, creating a small pool of cold water that sloshes gently with the boat's motion, and occasionally you catch the clean, oceanic scent rising from that corner. Not unpleasant, but earthy and real, a reminder of the practical purpose underlying all this nighttime poetry. Captain Somchai reaches into a worn canvas bag and withdraws a thermos, unscrewing the cap with the careful attention of someone performing a small ritual. Steam rises from the opening, carrying the rich aroma of Thai coffee, dark and sweet, and somehow perfect for this moment between night and morning. He pours some into the thermos cap and offers it to you first, a gesture of hospitality that feels entirely natural, despite the unusual circumstances. The coffee is hot against your lips, warm all the way down, spreading a comfortable heat through your chest that contrasts beautifully with the cool air on your skin. It tastes of condensed milk and something deeper, perhaps cardamom, perhaps just the accumulated wisdom of whoever prepared it for this long night on the water. You hand the cup back and watch as Somchai takes his own careful sip, his weathered face relaxing into an expression of quiet satisfaction. The sharing of this simple beverage creates a moment of heightened companionship. Two people from different worlds connected by the basic human pleasure of warm drink in cool air, of sweetness on the tongue while surrounded by the vast neutrality of the sea. You don't need to speak the same language to understand that this small ceremony has been repeated on fishing boats throughout time, a way of marking the passage from deep night toward the approaching day. The water around the boat has taken on an almost oily smoothness now, reflecting the scattered stars with unusual clarity. Looking over the side, you can see straight down into the illuminated water for several feet before it fades into mysterious darkness. Small fish occasionally dart through this cone of lantern light, their scales flashing like scattered sequins before they disappear back into the anonymity of the depths. Something larger moves through the edge of visibility, perhaps a small shark or ray, just a suggestion of graceful motion that appears and vanishes so quickly, you're not entirely certain you saw it at all. The water is full of such mysteries, creatures going about their ancient business in the liquid darkness below, completely indifferent to the human observers floating on the surface above their world. A gentle splash somewhere in the distance draws your attention, probably a fish jumping, though again it happens so quickly and quietly that it registers more as a feeling than a definite event. The ripples spread outward in perfect concentric circles until they're absorbed by the larger rhythm of the swells, becoming part of the sea's constant conversation with itself. The boat's lantern casts interesting shadows, now that you're more isolated from the other vessels. The coiled ropes take on mysterious shapes. The fishing gear arranged along the sides creates a landscape of gentle peaks and valleys in the golden light. Everything familiar has been transformed by this combination of illumination and darkness, made somehow more essential and beautiful than it would appear in the harsh clarity of daylight. Your hands have found their own comfortable position on the boat's warm wood, fingers tracing the subtle ridges and smooth valleys worn by weather and countless other hands. Over the years, this vessel has been working these waters. The texture tells stories your eyes could never read, of storms weathered, of fish hauled over the gunnels, of quiet moments like this one, when the boat serves not just as a tool, but as a platform for meditation, a floating temple dedicated to the simple practice of being present with the sea. Captain Somchai shifts slightly, adjusting his position with the unconscious grace of someone completely at home in this environment. The movement sends a small tremor through the boat that you feel rather than see, a reminder that you're sharing this small wooden island with another person, another consciousness also engaged in this gentle dialogue with the night and water. The horizon has begun to reveal itself more clearly now, not through any increase in light, but through some subtle change in the quality of darkness that allows your eyes to distinguish between the black of water and the black of sky. It's still hours before dawn, but something in the atmosphere has shifted. The way a sleeping person's breathing changes just before they begin to wake. Small waves lap against the hull with a sound like whispered secrets, each one slightly different in tone and rhythm, creating a constantly changing musical phrase that never quite repeats itself. You find yourself listening for patterns in this aquatic composition, catching hints of melody that dissolve just as you begin to recognize them, replaced by new variations on the theme of water meeting wood. The air carries scents that seem to change with each breath, sometimes the clean emptiness of open ocean, sometimes hints of the distant shore with its mixture of jungle and human habitation, sometimes just the immediate presence of the boat itself, with its layers of weathering and work, salt and sun, and the accumulated essence of countless fishing expeditions like this one. Your eyelids have grown heavy, not with the urgent tiredness that demands sleep, but with the deep relaxation that comes from extended time in gentle motion, surrounded by the natural rhythms that predate all human anxiety and complexity. The boat continues its subtle dance with the swells, rocking you with the same motion that has soothed travelers on the water since the first humans ventured beyond the safety of solid ground. This is the gift of the pre-dawn hours on the sea, not the dramatic beauty of sunset or the clear purpose of day, but this softer blessing of time suspended, of being held between darkness and light in a moment that belongs neither to yesterday nor tomorrow, but exists in its own peaceful category, a parenthesis in time where the only requirements are breathing and floating and allowing the great patient ocean to carry you gently through the turning of another night toward whatever morning will eventually bring. This suspended moment stretches and breathes with the rhythm of small waves against the hull, each gentle impact a soft percussion that seems to count not seconds or minutes, but something more patient, the heartbeats of the sea itself, measured in the rise and fall of water that has traveled perhaps thousands of miles to arrive at this exact spot where your boat rests, where your fishing line disappears into depths that hold their secrets close. The air carries that particular coolness that comes just before dawn, not the sharp chill of true night, but something softer, like the breath of someone sleeping peacefully nearby, and you find yourself breathing it in more deeply, tasting the salt that seems lighter now, less intense, as if the approaching day is already beginning to sweeten the atmosphere around you. Somchai moves with the unhurried precision of someone who has witnessed this transition countless times, adjusting a rope here, checking the small anchor there, his movements creating the faintest creaks from the wooden boat that blends seamlessly with the water sounds and the almost inaudible whisper of the lightest possible breeze. His bare feet make no sound on the worn deck boards, but you can sense his presence as a calming constant, a human anchor that keeps you tethered to this peaceful reality while your mind drifts with the same gentle motion as the boat itself. There's something profoundly comforting about sharing this pre-dawn space with someone who belongs so completely to these waters, whose knowledge runs as deep as the channels between the distant islands. The horizon ahead remains invisible, lost somewhere in the gradual blending of sea and sky, but there's a quality to that blending that has shifted almost imperceptibly since you last really looked. Not lighter exactly, but less dense, as if the darkness is beginning to thin like cream stirred slowly into coffee, the borders between water and air becoming somehow more permeable, more negotiable. Your eyes rest in that distant space without strain, without the effort of trying to focus on something specific. And there's a meditation in this soft gazing, this allowing your vision to simply receive whatever the morning chooses to reveal. The fishing line in your hand carries its own gentle messages up from the depths. Not the sharp tug of a catch, but the subtle communications of current and drift. The way the line sometimes grows slightly more taut as the boat shifts position, then relaxes again as you settle into a new configuration with the tide. There's a conversation happening here between boat and water, between your small, floating presence and the vast liquid world beneath. A dialogue conducted entirely in the language of gentle pressure and release, of subtle shifts in balance and weight. Your fingers learn to read these messages without conscious effort, the way you might unconsciously track the breathing of someone sleeping beside you. The water doesn't yet reflect anything that could be called dawn light, but there's a quality to its darkness that has shifted, as if it's beginning to prepare itself to become a mirror, cleaning its surface in anticipation of the spectacle it will soon be called upon to reflect. Small wavelets catch and release the faintest glimmers, creating momentary sparkles that appear and vanish so quickly, you're never quite sure whether you actually saw them or simply sense their possibility. Your body has found its perfect equilibrium with the boat's gentle motion, that state of physical harmony where you're no longer consciously aware of the movement, but have become part of it. Your inner ear and your muscle memory working together to keep you balanced and comfortable without any effort from your thinking mind. This integration feels like a small miracle, the way your land-adapted body has learned the vocabulary of floating, has accepted this alien environment, and found ways to be at peace within its constant subtle motion. The boat has become an extension of your own physical boundaries, a wooden cocoon that rocks you with the patience of someone who has all the time in the world. From the direction of the distant mainland comes the faintest suggestion of sound that might be human activity, not distinct enough to identify, but carrying that particular quality that distinguishes the sounds of human habitation from the voices of the natural world. Perhaps the distant rumble of a motor starting up as some other early riser begins their day, or the carry of voices across water that has that special clarity of sound transmission that occurs in the still air of dawn. These sounds don't intrude, but rather serve to emphasize the peaceful isolation of your position, the way a distant light can make the darkness around you feel more intimate rather than less. The salt air has begun to move with slightly more purpose now, Not yet what you could call a breeze, but something more intentional than the random stirring that has characterized the night hours. This movement carries information from all directions: the mineral breath of the limestone islands, the green exhalation of whatever vegetation has found purchase in the cliff faces, the deeper ocean smell that speaks of currents and depths, and the vast blue highways that connect these waters to the Pacific beyond. Your lungs process this atmospheric news automatically, each breath providing your body with its own form of navigation, telling you stories about the geography that surrounds you even in the darkness. The fishing line remains peaceful in your hand, its gentle tension speaking of depths and currents, rather than any urgency of catch. There's something deeply meditative about this connection to the underwater world, this single thread that disappears into mystery and connects you to realms you cannot see or directly experience. The hook and bait have become your ambassadors to that liquid universe, your small offering to whatever creatures move through the coral gardens and sand channels below. And whether anything chooses to accept that offering feels less important now than the simple fact of having made it, of having extended this gesture of participation in the complex web of relationships that defines these waters. The horizon has begun to assert itself as something more than a theoretical line, though still so subtly that you might not notice the change if you were looking directly at it. It's more a shift in the quality of the distance, a sense that the space where water meets sky is beginning to organize itself into something that your eye can almost, but not quite, distinguish. This emergence feels like watching a photograph slowly develop, the way an image gradually appears in the chemical bath, except measured not in minutes, but in the patient increments by which night surrenders to day over these tropical waters. Your awareness has expanded to encompass the entire sphere of sensation that surrounds you, the gentle pressure of air against your skin, the complex harmony of water sounds, the slowly shifting gallery of scents, the boat's patient conversation with the tide, the vast presence of the islands sleeping in the darkness around you. This expanded awareness feels natural rather than overwhelming, as if the pre-dawn hour has opened some usually closed channel of perception, allowing you to receive the full richness of this moment without the usual filters and selections that narrow daily experience into manageable streams of information. You exist in this bubble of heightened sensitivity, this temporary expansion of your sensory boundaries, like a gift that the night offers to those patient enough to receive it. The night has been generous with its secrets, and now it begins the gentle process of releasing you back toward the familiar world, though changed by what you have witnessed and felt. The boat responds to some subtle adjustments with the engine, the long-tail boat turning in a wide, unhurried arc that creates expanding rings across the water's surface. You can feel the shift in direction as a physical sensation, the way your body leans slightly into the turn, the way the breeze now touches a different angle of your face, carrying with it the promise of return. The engine settles into a different rhythm now, not the purposeful chug that carried you out into the fishing grounds, but something more leisurely, almost conversational in its cadence. It's the sound of contentment, of a job well done, of gentle progress rather than urgent pursuit. The vibration travels up through the wooden hull and into your bones, a massage that seems perfectly timed to help your expanded awareness settle back into something closer to ordinary consciousness. Though you sense that some of what you've experienced tonight will remain permanently integrated into your understanding of what it means to be alive in this world. Som moves with economical grace as he stows the fishing gear, each action deliberate and practiced. You watch him coil the lines with the same attention he gave to casting them, understanding now that for him, every aspect of this process deserves equal respect. The nets are folded with care, the hooks secured, the tackle arranged in its proper place. There's something deeply satisfying about witnessing this ritual of conclusion, this careful attention to completing one cycle before beginning the next. The boat's wake spreads behind you in a widening V, phosphorescent disturbances that mark your passage through water that has already begun to forget you were ever here. But you find yourself looking back at that glowing trail with something approaching fondness, as if it represents not just the water you've displaced, but the moments you've moved through, each one leaving its own subtle luminescence in the darkness of memory. The wake eventually fades, but you carry with you the knowledge of its brief, beautiful existence. As distance accumulates between you and the deeper waters, you become aware of how the sea itself is changing around you. The swells grow gentler, more predictable. The boat's motion shifts from the complex, three-dimensional dance of the open water to something more like a rocking chair's rhythm. Your body recognizes the change before your mind fully processes it, muscles relaxing into this easier motion, breathing naturally, synchronizing with this gentler rise and fall. The stars above remain constant, but their reflection in the water takes on new characteristics as you move into shallower areas. Where before the stellar light seemed to penetrate deep into black depths, now it dances more playfully on the surface, creating quick flashes and sparkles that come and go with each small wave. It's as if the water itself has become more cooperative, more willing to participate in this conversation between earth and sky. The first hint of distant shore comes not as something seen, but as something smelled. A subtle shift in the air brings notes of earth and vegetation, the green scent of land-based life that contrasts so completely with the clean, salt mineral smell of the open sea. You breathe it in deeply, surprised by how rich and complex this terrestrial perfume seems after hours of the ocean's simpler aromatics. There's something in that scent that speaks of roots and soil, of plants that know their place and hold it, of the different kind of stability that comes from being anchored to something solid and permanent. Som notices your attention to the changing air and nods with understanding. Thank you for traveling with Sleepy Travel Stories. May your dreams take you to beautiful places tonight. Sleep well, and we'll see you on the next journey.